Corruption is now called Death here in version 42. It's characterized as an insidious playstyle where you bend the rules to your benefit. So this treacherous and crafty sort of Affinity, some pretty interesting cards. In this video, we're going to take a look at those and see what amazing cards this Affinity has. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a version 42 guide. I am Sylphin. We're taking a look at Death and what Death has to offer for us. See if there's any really key cards for any heroes or just some really good cards in general. So right off the bat, we are starting off with Cull of the Week. So 1 agility cost and has an execute minions passive. Basic attacks execute enemy minions below 20% maximum health. So this really helps you last hit minions. If you are in lane, obviously, really can help secure that early farm. This is an economy card in the Death Affinity. I think it's really almost a must-have if you are kind of not too sure of your last hits. Now, Taskmaster is another odd card here that has a couple of implications. Spend 1,000 gold to equip this card, and you have an active ability called Cannibalize Minion. You sacrifice an allied minion and regenerate health equal to 10% of its current health for 50 mana and 100-second cooldown. So what this means is that you're incentivized to use it when your allied minion is higher health. You sacrifice it, gain that health back, and able to sustain in lane. Now, what I'm thinking of is that this can be used to starve the enemy here, the enemy laner, from a little bit of CP. Use it on your siege minion. Use it to get 10% of its health, which is a fair amount, to be honest with you, so that you can not only sustain in lane but also starve the enemy hero. Now, I'm not sure if this is balanced totally appropriately. I feel like 100 seconds is a pretty long time, but if you're using it on ranged minions, which do come more frequently here in version 42, on siege minions, pardon me, this could be a pretty good laning card. Tower Strider is an interesting utility card. For 1 vitality, which is very common to start off with, you get Structure Rush. 90 movement speed is gained when you are near structures. So whether that's enemy structures or your own, you gain 90 movement speed. This means that while you are inside towers, you can move around faster than normal. If you are in the off lane, you can really kind of dodge and move around and kind of get in and out on the back line and dive the heroes that are in your tower a little bit easier. Basically, kind of a quality of life while you are laning in your towers. Not so sure if this is an overly necessary card, but with experience, you can maybe see if this suits your playstyle in the early game. Devastation is a card that brings us to the interesting cursed aspect of Death. For 1 agility and 1 vitality, so very early game card, you get 7 power. That is tremendously powerful in the early game, as you typically don't find that till quite a bit later on. And you gain 3 power when an enemy structure is destroyed. So there's 3 tier 1s, obviously, there's 3 tier 2s, that's 6, 3 inhibitors, 9. Obviously, that has potential to give you quite a bit. Now, the cursed aspect of this card, as you can see right here, is a thing about Death. You cannot unequip this card. You cannot. So once you equip this card, it is there forever for the rest of the match, and you can't do anything. What this is about is that you trade, you're kind of gambling. Can you utilize that 7 power and kind of snowball, get a tower down, get a couple towers down, get that very, very, very early power, and play an early focused game? I don't know. Do you think that is worth it? Get your 3 tier 1s down, that's 9 power plus the 7 you already have. you know, it is a thing. If you can pull this off on somebody like a Countess, perhaps, hey, or even a carry, really, if you're really not playing the late game, this could snowball like crazy. Now here is another cursed card called Lord Volstock. For 1 vitality and 1 knowledge, you gain 12 power this time, and every 10 seconds gain 12 experience but lose 60 gold. So for this card, you're, instead of relying on power from our previous card, well, when towers went down, we are more relying on experience. So if you are a heavy hitting caster like maybe a Countess that can really upgrade those abilities for tremendous damage potential, this may be that early game card you are wanting. If you can equip these cursed cards early on very quickly and snowball with it, this might just work. And to keep this cursed train rolling, we have another one, Possessed Spry Kin. Now this is for 3 vitality, you gain 6 power, again 6 power and 120 health. But the passive is you gain a whopping 12.5 health regen, an amazing amount of health regen to keep you topped up. Now my thinking is that this is simply meant to keep you alive on the battlefield so that you can snowball even more because you are playing the early game. You're playing the early game card, you've invested in it, and you need to stay on the battlefield, get that tower down instead of going back and going back to base and healing up. You're staying on the battlefield to continue your snowball. Possessed Sprykin is going to help. Now here is a fantastic, relatively early game damage card that you can hopefully use to tremendous effect. Invader Mage costs only 4 knowledge and you gain 13 power and get 12 ability armor penetration. For this low cost of a card, that is a tremendous amount of stats and that passive, that ability armor penetration. Again, a lot of these cards here have high early game effects, while Invader Mage is simply just great bang for your buck. Now we just had ability armor penetration, and we have its contemporary here, basic armor penetration. Guard Piercer is a 5 agility cost card, the 16 power this time, and 22 basic armor penetration. A little bit more basic armor. Basic armor is much more prevalent as it is on the agility stat, so that's why you're getting a little bit more. Again, for 5 points, which that is definitely in the early game, you can get tremendous damage potential out of the Death Affinity. Now with the reworked Vision here in version 42, you'll be interesting to find Vision in this sort of a card. Finder of Playthings is a 2 vitality, 4 knowledge card that gives 10 power, again for only 6 points, 6 attribute points. That's pretty darn good, and 1 mana regen. Unholy Gaze, target an enemy hero to reduce attack speed by 30% and move speed by 100 for 2.5 seconds. In addition to this, you also reveal all enemy heroes on the map for 6 seconds. 90-second cooldown for 75 mana. Really an amazing card. It reveals all enemy heroes on the map. It's infinitely better than a ward, but you need an enemy hero nearby to kind of activate that. So if you are, ganking with your death jungler, perhaps you can target that enemy hero that you're ganking, boom, reduce their attack speed. Hopefully it's maybe their carry, and you get to see who else is on the map and kind of give your tactical advantage. Is that jungler rotating and because he anticipated my gank, or is he not? Really great card here with Vision implemented very differently. And this card needs no introduction because Veil Stepper has been talked about a ton already. 4 agility, 2 vitality for 8 health regen, 8 and 18 basic armor. Basically, whenever you pass through a fog wall, you enter the shadow plane for 3 seconds. This I don't need to explain how powerful that is for ganking, for rotating, for doing anything in the jungle. That is phenomenally powerful. Can you imagine this on any ganker really, but on a Countess or on an Aurora even? Could just get into position 3 seconds after coming out of the jungle or into the jungle. This is just absolutely terrifying on a lot of people. Gideon even, I kind of has to get elevated first, but still, the potential of Veil Stepper is just ridiculous. Must have on a lot of jungler heroes. Now this card brings me right back to World of Warcraft as a Warlock with health tap, except it's the opposite. So this card is called Warlock's Burden, 3 Vitality and 3 Knowledge. Gains 250 health, so kind of making me think like either you just need a little bit of tank or you are a tank, and you get to lose 3% of your max health and restore 2% of your max mana per second for 6 seconds, and it's on a cooldown. Now, why would you want to do that? Obviously, maybe you can regenerate your health in order to kind of convert it into mana. This makes me think this would be great on a phase, maybe on a rampage with his additional health regen, or maybe even a chimera to buff up that mana that he definitely could use when ganking. Kind of very situational card. Let me know down in the comments what kind of scenarios you foresee Warlock's Burden thriving in. So to go back to great ganking and jungling cards, Swamp Stalker is another one of these. 7 agility to get 13 power and 11 attack speed. Definitely a damage DPS sort of card. And it also has Isolate, deal 35 bonus basic damage to enemy units without a nearby ally. So if you are in the off lane perhaps, or in the mid lane, you can use this to great effect as you are alone. If you are a jungler, maybe you can clean up engagements when your ally dies or they have to retreat. Depending on how large the radius of this card is, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously situational, but the potential there is really good. For a 7 cost card to get 13 power, 11 attack speed, that is all right. Now, talking of situational cards here, Wicked Riposte is one of those. 2 agility, 5 vitality to gain 6 power, a bit of power, but 36 ability armor. The active part of this is called Unstable Purification. Purify yourself and deal 75 ability damage to nearby enemies per negative effect that is removed. So this Purify you can use whenever you want, even while you are stunned, I do believe. And again, that's 75 ability damage to nearby enemies per negative effect that is removed. So a lot of these debuffs and effects are prevalent here in version 42, so this has the potential to really do quite a bit. Again, the 5 vitality and the ability armor means a little bit of a tanky death hero that you can definitely get some good utility out of, as well as damage. Wound Seeker is a solid damage card. 6 agility, 2 vitality, gaining 17 power and 19 attack speed with 2 passives. The first passive is Hunter's Pierce, ignore basic armor against critically wounded targets, and Hunter's Blight. Basic attacks apply Blight to critically wounded targets for 10 seconds. Obviously, you really want to finish people off with this card, and I think you really are going to with this card. So people that can clean up, Kalari certainly can do that quite well and just stay in the shadows. She can really utilize this card to make sure those targets are down. Anybody though can absolutely use this card for some good damage while making sure you can finish the kill. Now here's a good brawler bruiser sort of card that has some good utility and damage and tankiness as well. Numbing Rogue is 2 agility and 7 vitality to gain 12 power, pretty good, and 36 basic armor. Now nearby enemies through the debuff aura of attack speed have their attack speed slowed by 25%. That's a significant amount. So if you are a frontline brawler, bruiser, sort of death hero, you can really hurt the carry, especially if they have 2 or even 3 on their team. Good card here for not too expensive, being 9 total attribute points. Now this card makes me giddy with possibilities because this active is nuts. Shadow Dancer is a 3 vitality, 6 knowledge death card that gives you 14 power and 24 basic armor. Now the active here is that every 35 seconds you can enter the shadow plane and gain 50 movement speed for 15 seconds. Attacking an enemy though from the shadow plane applies a 400 movement speed slow for only 1 second. So obviously this helps you get into position tremendously well, and can also focus a target and slow them just for a brief bit. Now imagine this card on an Aurora that can just sneak up and just boom, there is her basic attack on the carry or on the phase. Boom, there goes her ultimate out of absolutely nowhere. Oh boy, this card has potential. Any hero that can do that on a Countess, you can just walk up totally in the shadow plane. Boom, there's your ult with maybe another, with the sleeper agent from the knowledge affinity to go sleeper agent. Boom, there's your ult. Oh, just come out of nowhere and do some tremendous damage. Shadow Dancer, really almost a must-have in my opinion on Aurora and maybe even Countess. Awaken the Emmerich is the first minion sort of card in the Death Affinity. We gain 4 vitality and 6 knowledge. You can get 17 power and 8 health regen. The active part here is Toxic Horde. You can convert all nearby minions to your team and grant all nearby minions Death Touch and drain life. Death Touch obviously instantaneously wipes out the enemy team's minions, and Drain Life can help your minions drain life from their targets. Only costs 100 mana, and you can do it every 2.5 minutes. Can you imagine this on a split push Wukong that can just boom? There is even faster lane pushing capability, or any hero really that you want a little bit of power on and some lane presence. Phenomenal card, really. I would just love to see some pretty sick plays done with this. Nameless Curse is a pretty scary card here, as for 3 vitality and 9 knowledge, it's starting to get expensive here. You gain 15 power, 125 mana, and 1 mana regen. The active though is pretty crazy. Deal 50 damage per second to the enemy target for 18 seconds. That's 900 damage. This damage though cannot kill the unit. So for 100 mana and use it every 80 seconds, that is a pretty consistent source of damage you can just apply to a target, and 18 seconds later, that's 900 damage that they will take. So really, on any hero you really want dead, this is going to be great. It's just, I think, another card that complements a damage dealer that's also probably somebody like a caster. A Shinbi could use this, although she's she's kind of very 1v1 focused, so she's kind of got that down pat. But on other casters, they can use this for great single target damage while they focus other people perhaps, or just that target. Plague Lord Malank is it's an interesting card. For 4 vitality and 8 knowledge, you gain 17 power, 290 health, and 170 mana. There's 2 parts to it. The Blight aura is that nearby enemy heroes have Blight, and the movement speed slow aura is that you slow the movement speed of nearby enemy heroes by 80. So just by you being around, you are causing blight, which reduces their healing, which is basically damage, and you can slow the movement speed of everybody by 80. Immediately, because of the knowledge on this card, I have to think of more knowledge, sort of casters, supports. Maybe if you're playing an aggressive death support, maybe perhaps Richter here with some of that knowledge, you can get away with this, as you will just be right in the face of your enemies, slowing them down, causing them blight. Now on an Aegean Scorch though, this sounds pretty good. You are still going to want to put Vitality on him, make sure that he can just stay within his turret range, but not only are you causing them blight, you're also slowing down to increase his turrets. This is a fantastic card for Aegean Scorch, or more aggressive support heroes in the Death Affinity. Now here is a card that the more you think about it, the more it maybe becomes more viable. It's called Withering Shadow. For 9 Vitality and 3 Knowledge, you gain 20 power and 395 health. The Blood Damage Aura deals 125 ability damage to yourself and 125 ability damage to nearby enemy units per second. So because that's enemy units, that also means minions and enemy heroes. Sieging and defending, objective pushes is going to be effective with this card, and because of that Vitality and a little bit of knowledge, really any sort of tanky hero can get this card. So if you are tanky and you have ability armor on other cards, remember that ability damage is going to be reduced fairly substantially, that you're going to take, but not what the enemy is going to receive. So if you are tanky with ability armor, you can absorb that yourself while still dish it out. So somebody like a Zinx can really have this on, just absorb that ability damage that she's doing to herself, but be exuding that damage on everybody else. Now here is a pretty scary card called Grinning Spectre, and look at that art. 13 Knowledge, you gain 25 power and 195 mana. The Creeping Death active here is launch a slow moving projectile that deals 300 true damage, means that it ignores passives and other things. If this brings the target below 15% maximum health, they are executed. We have an execute card here in version 42, and because that is true damage 300, it is much more reliable to land and maybe try to get that execute. 100 mana every minute, that seems ridiculous. Now depending on how slow that projectile is, and I have heard and seen that it's pretty darn slow, the effectiveness of it and the actual implication of the card may be limited, but if you get used to it, if you can get reliable with it, oh boy, that is terrifying. As for expensive late game cards, this one really doesn't let us down. Sorvuk Initiate is a 10 Vitality, 3 Knowledge card that gives us 410 health and 48 ability armor. Definitely a tank card that you are getting because you're tanky and you are going to use it very well, because Sacrificial Link is an active part of this card. You create a link with an enemy hero. Both heroes take 8% maximum health and ability damage per second. Continues until this link is broken by distance or interrupts. So this is, I am a tank and I can also deal some damage. I'm jumping in the back line and I'm focusing you down, and you are going, you're dead. Now, obviously, this scales extremely well with Rampage, who can just regenerate that health back. With Chimera, who can also regenerate that health back, and even a Zinx, who can just absorb that straight up and convert that damage and pay for that damage with her mana instead of her health. And with some other cards on Zinx as well, you can see that another card can maybe cancel this one out. This is phenomenal. It provides ability armor, 48 freaking ability armor, so that 8% max health in ability damage is really reduced. So if you can put this on a squishy target, they are going to take a ton of damage, and you, depending on your hero, won't really. The last card was a tanky card. This one definitely not. Vampiric Blade is a 9 agility and 4 vitality card that gives you 15 power, 20 attack speed, 240 health. Now what happens is Overflowing Feast is the active part where you gain 150% lifesteal for 3 seconds. So with 75-second cooldown for 100 mana, you basically get 50% more damage that you deal back as health. Plus, on top of that, you get 10% lifesteal all the time. This is a fantastic card for damage dealers that are in the Death Affinity. It's one of the only cards, I think the only card that actually gives you straight up lifesteal. So that is this. You can get it in your gyms, but this is the only card that gives that. With that health in there, yeah, carries can also use that, but melee carries can absolutely use this. So Vampiric Blade on a Serath, on a Yin, very, very strong. And we've already mentioned Wukong a couple times. On Wukong, this is fantastic as well. And we're back to the beginning. So there is Death. You can see a lot of really interesting actives and passives that really do bend the rules in your favor. A lot of good damage cards, and that is the really good strong suit here of Death. Really, it really doesn't let you down in terms of its name. Lots of damage cards here in 7 power, 12 power, 6 power, 13, 16 on low cost cards, which is very rare in the other affinities. So Death, that is definitely what you get Death for, and for some really key cards, for some key heroes, it goes a long way. Plus, the Execute Minions really helps you with that, and the Taskmaster can also help you in lane as well. So definitely some good use for some carries, for some casters, even some offlaners. There's really a lot of potential with Death. Like always, let me know down in the comments if there's anything I missed. I feel like there's a few things that perhaps just kind of went over my head. Let everybody know down in the comments some amazing synergies that you guys see between this card, other cards, and especially with certain heroes. I'm really looking for, I'm really delving deep into finding what some key cards for key heroes are here in version 42. Thank you guys, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like this video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it, share it with the community, and of course guys, subscribe. You guys like this content, especially if you found it useful. Please subscribe so I can do it for you in the future. If you would like to support me on a regular basis, please head on over to my Patreon account where you can make a pledge to help me do what I love. Till next time, like always guys, stay optimistic and positive.